What's up, everyone? Welcome back to StrangeCast, Player One vs. Life with Strange podcast. I am one of your hosts, Adam. I'm a co-host. Adam is here. Adam, you here?
I am here. I live in America, and somehow, some way, people think that they're Irish on this day. Who knows?
Well, everyone has to celebrate this day, whether they're Irish or not. It's become a staple around the world. So, yes, we're back recording the 17th of March. So apologies, we lost our episode earlier in the week. It was like a 2 hour plus episode, and just, oh God, like there was so much technical issues that we had to throw the episode away, and I couldn't believe it. So we've kind of re-recorded on the 17th of March with the hope of getting out on the Wednesday the week after. So this will come to you a little bit late, and I do apologize about that, but I'm hoping that this one comes out better. As you can see, Adam's there. Yes. Feels the same
hopefully.
way. Yeah, hopefully. But either way, yes, you are back here, and this will be episode 40. 41 if you're counting the other 2-part special, but we count that as one. But yeah, episode 40. And if you are new here, I do always ask as well, could you please drop us a subscribe, turn notifications, like, and share with your friends. It helps keep up to date with our content. And also StrangeCast is available on all podcast services, so you can get us on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify with over 100 followers, which is really great and great to see, and I'm always appreciative of hearing that, and so is Adam as well. And also we're available on every other podcast service, so you can download the episodes and follow us on that. But yeah, please do follow us on YouTube. We get a high number of traffic that comes to this channel who aren't subscribed. And if you do subscribe, it helps support the channel and makes us more appealing to people. It's always a hard, it's always a bit difficult first with selling ourselves to people and getting them on here. But nonetheless, we're back. So hopefully this episode goes well and a bit more efficiently. Yeah. Adam, should we kick off with first piece of news?
Yeah, definitely.
Right, so this won't be too long. This will be our only piece of news. The last episode didn't have that episode. The scrapped episode didn't have this, but we got it for here. And it's a quick one, which is PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium free games for March 2023 have been announced. And in there, obviously, is Life is Strange, hence why we're bringing it up. So I'm just going to I'm not going to read the full paragraph here, all of it. It says, as a reminder, the already announced titles for this month are in March. March? Yeah. Yes, March. Yeah. Okay, I'm going crazy. Tchia, Uncharted, Legacy of Thieves Collection, Ghostwire Tokyo, Immortals Phoenix Rising, and Rainbow Six Extraction. And then on top of that, obviously, they are joined by 4 Square Enix titles, including Life is Strange 2 and Life is Strange True Colors. So I'm not going to go reading into them too much. I just wanted to bring that up as a flag. If you have PlayStation Plus, they are available on one of the tiers that you can get access to.
I believe on the extra tier, and then premium. And premium freaking okay. Either extra or premium. I still don't understand what the tiers are.
It's so it's just such a poor man's poor man's Games Pass. Yeah. So badly done. But if you do want to do that, you can go and check them out. True Colors is expected now. I thought it would come to that. I would be surprised if it comes do like a universal, like the bottom tier of PlayStation Plus, the free games that they usually give you. I'd be surprised if Life is Strange finishes in that, because it's never had that kind of thing. But I'm not surprised it's been added to the other tiers. I think it's just kind of like now we're about 2.5 years on, I believe, from Life is Strange True Colors' release. 3 years in September. Yeah.
And obviously, 2 years in September. It came out 2021. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 years. Oh, yeah, sorry, 2 years.
Yeah.
And then obviously Life is Strange 2 is in that. We all love Life is Strange 2. So
of course.
It's a good thing to have in there. So yeah, just a quick reminder on that. And we obviously, our media part of this episode is going to be our main topic. I don't think much else to add on to that, unless you have anything else to say.
If you have it, use it. And also, I believe Untitled Goose Game is coming onto the PlayStation. So play Untitled Goose Game. That's a fun game. But then go back to True Colors. It's fine.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely check them both out. It's good to support those. Adam, before we go into the main topic, I just want to bring up one thing for you, which was funny. I was talking to a friend off podcast. Do you remember we talked about Forspoken on one of the previous podcasts? We were talking about the dialogue and stuff, and you were talking about expenditure of the games and how expensive they are to make games. I got 2 articles here that I took screenshots of. I was sending to my friends, and one of them was that Square Enix says Forspoken's launch sales were lackluster, quote unquote, which doesn't surprise me at all. But,
yeah, that's their that's like their hit line. It's like, oh, we didn't make the sales.
It's always that with Square Enix. It's always the sales have never expectations. But there's another article which I saw from Games Radar, which is reportedly. Do you know how much this game cost to make?
No, I don't think I found that number. No.
So the article's from Games Radar, and the actual title says, Forspoken reportedly cost 100 million to make, and players are baffled. 100 million for this game.
Oh my god, dude.
If you had said to me, as someone who's like, I'm going to pitch this game and I'm going to make it for 100 million, there's no way in hell I would have ever financed it. I would have financed it for 1 million.
Yeah, Forbidden West, to remind everybody, it was 110 million euros. 110 million. So it's just 10 million short of Horizon Forbidden West. Oh, boy.
And do you know what, as well? I would be surprised if Horizon didn't make all that money back as well. Because Horizon's not as popular as like a Grand Theft Auto or a Call of Duty or something that's like a mega hit.
Honestly. What the fuck? No. Sorry. God of War 2. No. Okay, that's on the old one. They said 50 million. I'm like, what? Excuse me? No. Okay, so Ragnarok. Let me look up Ragnarok. Just to like get some clarification on where we're at. Really? God of War Ragnarok game, massive budget of $44 million. $44 million for Ragnarok. And then Forbidden West was 110 million. You're telling me that Forspoken was 100 million. That's how much it cost?
Reportedly cost $100 million. You like the strap line for the article on Games Radar. It says, in quotes, I blew up the budget with my freaking mind. And that's how I felt when I saw this. I could not. I'm genuinely being serious. Like, this is like saying that if I found out that Life is Strange 1 was a $100 million game, I would never believe it in a million. It's never $100 million game. Especially for Forspoken. I knew it was going to bomb the minute I saw it.
Wow. That's wild. Whoa, man. And Callisto Protocol. I'm just curious now. These couple games. Callisto Protocol. Okay, you want to talk about something blowing your mind here? So Forspoken, which came out the way it was looking, was 100 million. Callisto Protocol, which a lot of people were not happy. I was happy with the product.
Yeah.
I was okay with it. $161 million. Oh, bro. Oh, that's heavy. That's a lot of money.
I think itself, some of these games are becoming too expensive to make. They shouldn't be making them at this cost. Like, they just don't. Like, I like, this is why, like, we've spoken about the Montreal game as well. Their budget's nowhere near $100 million. Like, let's be honest. And I feel like that's, and for them, they don't need $100 million. They don't, I imagine they probably would love $100 million and let's make whatever they want. But I don't think you don't need it if it doesn't fit into the style of your game. And this is like the issue I've had with it, especially like Forspoken, for example. Like, this, if you had sold me this idea, I would have said to you, like, nah, this ain't going to do well. And I'm not S-H-I-T shitting. Actually, I don't know why I'm spelling out, but I don't know why I'm not shitting on Forspoken, but I just knew it was never going to do well. This is common Square Enix things to do. Yeah.
Oh, man, that's wild. Nope, it's just wild. That's wild.
Just whilst you're there, and before we move into the main topic, because we'll get back on Life is Strange, and it's a funny main topic anyway, check up how much Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy was the budget for, because that game obviously was a critical success, but not commercial success. And Square Enix were like, we're they were doing the Square Enix thing. It's like it's not done as well as we'd hoped it did.
Okay. No, Game Pass reportedly cost Microsoft. Gotcha. Never mind.
Right.
I was like, but it said like 5 to 10 million. But I'm guessing Microsoft paid them 5 to 10 million. Gotcha. What was the cost of Guardians of the Galaxy? Film. I don't want to know the film.
We could. You might be looking for years at this point with the movies being there. They're probably going to like.
Yeah, it's like mostly giving me the budget from the movie and not the game. Synopsis, gameplay, plots, reception. Yeah, it's not really giving me. Oh, development. Hold on.
Here we go.
No, I don't see a number. I don't see a number anywhere. Well,
right,
that's so
let's
stupid. Yeah, I'm curious too, but I don't know. I can't see. Oh, okay. No, it's still giving me like it costs 10 million to put it on Game Pass. So I don't know the actual budget of the game. So, what are you going to do? But I know that Square Enix lost $200 million when they released Avengers.
Yeah.
So that was that. But yeah, I don't know.
Let's leave it at that then, because I think it'll still be. I think it'll be about. I'm going to say it's about 100 million. The budget would have been, if we were like taking guesses at it. But well, I just thought I'd bring that Forspoken thing up because when I saw it again, it blew my mind. But as you will, and I think we've spoken about Forspoken longer than the first news segment. But I think, as I said, there wasn't a huge amount anyway. But right, main topic. So this is a play in our previous topic that we did in the scrapped episode. But what we realized when we recorded it, it was just long. It went on for ages, and then kind of in it was a topic I wanted to do in the future, but I've decided to like move it forward now because it's quite interesting. So the actual topic is that Adam is going to review my Life is Strange reviews that I did back in the industry. So these are reviews I wrote for Life is Strange when I was working in the video game industry as a freelance video game journalist. And there's 8 reviews we're going to do. I did more for Life is Strange, but I did like ports and stuff. But there's 8 major reviews we're going to do, which is episode 3, 4, 5, and the full season review of Life is Strange 1. And it's Life is Strange Life is Strange 2, episode 1, 2, 3, 4. At that point, I left the industry again. And I never reviewed episode 5, never reviewed the full season. So it's kind of, we'll talk about each episode, what I did and what I wrote. It's kind of for me as well, for reflection as well, to look back on it. Because like reviews are one of those weird things when you're writing them. Like I was basically writing these reviews whilst embargoes were happening. I was getting codes, writing them. And then I was a quote unquote reviewer, journalist in the video game industry. And these all are approved on Metacritic. When I was writing them, they are all Metacritic reviewed on there, and also on OpenCritic as well. So these are reviews I've wrote back many years ago. Obviously, the first set I've written in 2015. It feels like a lifetime ago, but it's kind of condenses our first our scrapped episode in this nutshell. So we're going to go through 8 of them. Right. So episode 3, Chaos Theory, is where we start. This was my journey of starting off on Life is Strange reviews. The writer of the site who was doing it before, I think, had left at that point, and I decided to take it up because I was the quote unquote Life is Strange guy there when I was like covering news and writing stuff, and they were like, you should potentially consider doing this. And I was like, yeah, you know what, I'll do it. So I started with episode 3, Chaos Theory. I started getting review codes from Square Enix. These are all Square Enix review codes that I got for the game when I was working there. So just to preface that, I didn't pay. Well, actually, I'd already bought the season pass for Life is Strange 1, but then I got review codes. So nonetheless, I was playing it early. Adam, episode 3, Chaos Theory. Do you want me to start or do you want to go?
I'm just going to be reading like a couple paragraphs here and there.
Oh, dear.
Then...
No.
Something interesting. Listen, you want me to like release my music, and I hate my music, so I'm going to be reading a couple things.
I hate what I write. Oh, God.
So, just one paragraph. Let's start you off easy. One paragraph, and then going into the number, because this is what I found the most interesting. Now, let's discuss not only the best aspect of this episode, but also the most redeeming factor of the entire series thus far. And this is starting at episode 3. Protagonist Maxine Caulfield and her faithful chauffeur and companion, Chloe Price. Despite some of the negative criticisms directed towards Life is Strange's writing, pacing, and lip syncing, the Max-Chloe dynamic is once again thoroughly engrossing, as Dontnod has played to its strength by continuing to layer these two characters' complicated relationship with some truly meaningful and heartwarming scenes. So he really picked it up in a way of like, this is what's redeeming it. And even though people are talking about the lip syncing and cringe, there's a lot that you dug about the dynamic these two. And I think the dynamic really picks up in this particular episode, which I would agree. And you gave, and like I said, I'm only going to read the one paragraph here, but then you gave ultimately you gave the episode a 4.5 out of 5. So almost perfect. But he gave it a
So this is a 10-point
5.
scale for anyone listening. We did a 5 scale, but in a 10-point scale. So
Yes.
4.5 for 5, 3.5, 3. So yeah, it's a near perfect score.
Yeah, you said Donut created a stroke of genius at the end of episode 3, which, yes, it was a stroke of genius. Yeah. It was like leaving you with something jaw-dropping. Again, I'm not going to read what you wrote, but you did use the word jaw-dropping in your conclusion. And I would agree that this episode really went off on something that we haven't seen in a lot of story video games before, something that made you feel awful for your decisions that you really didn't make. It was like how the writing was, but you felt responsible. So it was an effect that not a lot of games made you do before. And you gave it a 4.5, so almost perfect. So I would agree with that.
Because look, it's interesting you mentioned all that, and even the paragraphs as well. I was just I was defending Life is Strange cringe, but I was cringing at my own writing. But anyway, I think, in hindsight, truthfully, I would probably have given that a perfect score.
Oh yeah,
because like one of the things as I said to you before, and I'll quickly lace this as well. Video game journalists are not paid off. I worked in that industry. We are not paid off. And if you think journalists are paid off and then you believe YouTubers, then that makes me criticize you even more, because you believe a shill YouTuber who has no ethics and no guidelines and no editor to check their stuff and is just spouting off things because of companies give them stuff. No. So with that, and I think like this is the thing, I always play something, my opinion changes. And it's so hard. Like even if you're purely simplifying something on a score level, it's so difficult. Like Adam could listen to one of his songs that he makes. He could hate it today. He could like it tomorrow. He could hate it the next day. He could change his mind every single day. Same with any film
that's
you watch.
Every time.
Yeah.
Venuste is like my back and forth. On board, I hate, will always hate to the day that I hate on board. But Venuste, I go back and forth on.
Yeah, and he might appreciate it down the line in a couple of years where he's changed his perception on it. It's very difficult because I've done it myself many times. I've had to flick through it, and just for context again as well, I had to review these at the time. They were coming one at a time, so it's like I can't say, because you'll find I gave a perfect score to a very controversial episode, which Adam has mentioned before, controversial for Adam at least. But it's like in hindsight, I would score them very differently. Some of them I'd score differently. Some of them are probably up and down in terms of like score wise. But
yeah,
truthfully, I would probably give this a 5 out of 5 now in context of like hindsight. I think it's up there. If not this one or the next one of the two is a perfect score for me. I think they are just wonderful episodes. Like as you said, this episode has so much stuff. Like even me using the phrase jaw dropping is still very relevant to how I feel now. Like the ending. Like, and we're talking about, this is episode 3's ending. We're not even talking about the other ending yet, which we'll get onto, but the episode ending is so good. This is the episode, and I think we'll revisit episode 2, Adam, for a future episode, I imagine, on this podcast, because we had very interesting views on that. I think people will find it very surprising. It's as I said, that podcast will never surface, never see the light of day, but I think people will find it very interesting how we felt about it. But this one was full Max and Chloe. There was so much sentimental scenes about it. I loved the William Price dynamic as well. I loved how endearing he was. I loved how he reacted to Max and how you felt for him. And then that kind of like the true significance of Max's power. We had that kind of thing in the second episode at the end where it's like they're taking power away. At this point, we're using Max's power in full swing, and this is what happens when you truly change time all the way through. And when we get to that ending, and you like look at Chloe, you're like,
yes,
and you're like, wow, and it's like that's a jaw dropper for me.
Yeah, no, like I said, it made you feel responsible, even though it was pre-written. It was predestined, if you will, if you want to be religious about it. But yeah, no, but it made you feel so weird about yourself. And then you had to wait for episode 4 to come out. Like you had to like feel for this episode and then wait. Like that was insane to think about. Like nowadays, like now you can just play the game first and then just go on to the next episode. But just to be like with that weight on your shoulders, like I make Chloe a quadriplegic trying to help her and then wait, So I think it was one of the best endings we gotten. One of the best endings we got from this series.
Yeah, it was a stroke of genius from Donut, and I think like when I was reviewing these, I'd go on the forums and Reddit page of Life is Strange, and I'd see how people be like, "Oh, I'm excited to see what happens this next episode." I'm like, "Oh boy, you do not know what's about to come to you." And like, you really don't know. So it was kind of great to have played that episode. And that was like my first review for Life is Strange. Like, that is 8 years on from when I wrote it, and it feels so weird. Obviously, like I was in the industry and out of the industry at different points. That's why I didn't review BTS. I'd done so many interviews in between all my time there. This is why I started the channel, just for context as well. Like, I was a big Life is Strange fan, hence why I've come back and done this, and like started keep the conversation going as well. And obviously, very grateful for Adam to be here and help keep the conversations flowing as much as possible. But like, generally, the episodes, it's strong, man. It's as I said, it's a 5 for me, or I would be a bit critical and put it back down to 4.5. Critical, even though it's already a great score. I would put it back to 4.5 because the next episode it's these two that are the like. I'm like, yeah.
Well, I have your next review up if you want to move on.
Of course.
To that one. All right. So I'm going to read a paragraph, or like half a paragraph. It's the second to last paragraph of the review.
Ooh.
I'm going to read just half of this. So you write, Life is Strange's exquisite art direction is seen in its full effect in episode 4, Darkroom, with this being one of the first occasions that the visuals are significantly changed depending on the location that Max and Chloe travel to. The vibrant colors of Blackwell Academy reinforce the stunning visuals I've continued to praise and admire since episode 1, Chrysalis. While we see the darker side of the aesthetics at the end of the World Party, for example, I previously mentioned in my review of episode 3, Chaos Theory, that it had an open-ended cliffhanger that is nothing short of the best jaw-dropping conclusion to the episodic title to date. But yes, you were praising this whole game, this whole episode with the aesthetic, like the lights changing on. Especially the after party, right? Where the moons are split into two. So it gets darker and darker and darker until you reach the very end of the episode, which talk about jaw dropping. We go from one jaw dropping conclusion to the next. And you ultimately gave this episode 4.5 out of 5. So you both the episodes received near perfect score, but now that we're on that, you also said that I made a bold claim after the 3rd episode's release that Life is Strange has the potential of being a strong candidate for Game of the Year, and Darkroom went far enough to reaffirm that statement. So you gave it 4.5, but you still said it was Game of the Year.
I think that was the year where like Life is Strange was making waves, and I remember like it could have been a Game of the Year contender. It had like really big competition, but it stormed awards. Obviously, won BAFTAs and stuff, and it was, as I've said before in my reviews, and which have also been picked up on Wikipedia, is I called it the sleeper hit of 2015. It really was. It just was never. It never had what it was. It was like this is the point where the fandom really was like kicking into high gear. Episode 3, 4. It was like people like really engrossed in the series. It came like a. It was like a late kind of like bloomer in terms of like people coming into the show. But like episode 4, like as you said, I think you made a great point about like the lighting changing and how darker it gets in the game.
You made that point. I didn't make that point. You did.
Well, I made the point, but you made it more effective in terms of like the way that as we progressed in the episode, in terms of like you were kind of like explaining like we kind of go from these interesting shot dynamics where it's like where you, even like when you bump into Jefferson outside the Vortex party, it's very dark. You see Chloe and Max talking to him. It's kind of like, it's just setting up that kind of tone. The Vortex party, kind of like the red ambience, the dark room. But in terms of the episode, like the entire thing, again, this was such a strong one. This is where, like, for me, 4.5 is where I would stay, or I'd go to 5. Like, this is very similar to episode 3. Like, the conversation would be so difficult to kind of say with these two games. It's like, which one is the 5, which one's the 4.5. They could go either way in the hindsight now. And I think with episode 4, it's just like the way it starts, like you kind of deal with the repercussions of the stuff about going back in time, a more deeper kind of relationship with Max and, William, the decision from Chloe. It's like kind of like, that's like so early on in the game. It's like, then you kind of you deal with that, and then you go back into the present. Then you have the entire like whiteboard segment where you can kind of like you start mapping together everything that you've done for 4 episodes. Where it's like, right, we need to figure out what happens next. We need to find out what happened to Rachel and what this dark room thing is. Then you go to the dark room as well, which is a pretty crazy one. The combination thing which you brought up in our deceased episode is a good point as well. That was really difficult first. And the worst part is when you're doing these kind of reviews as well, you don't have guides. So I'm like there, and I'm like, how do I get in? I'm like, how? Like, how do I get in there? It's like,
yeah.
But like, no, like, go, sorry.
I was gonna say, but like between the 2 episodes, you said you teetered between giving a 5 out of 5 between episode 3 and episode 4. What would you say? Which one's the 5 and which one is staying at a 4.5 between episode 3 and 3 and 4?
It's so hard that it's so hard to decide which one it would be. I think if I had to go for it, it would probably be episode 3. But my heart would tell me it's episode 4, because when we get to that ending, I remember that ending, and I was like, holy shit! It was just like we've talked about me and Adam before, like where True Colors tried to take too much out of Life is Strange 1's playbook, it kind of gave away the reveal very late on, like very early on. Sorry, with like Jed, the red herrings weren't strong enough. Like in this game, the first Life is Strange, it's like, it reminds me of the first Scream film, that scene where Randy shouts, "Everyone's a suspect." That's what it's like, because everyone is a suspect at that point. Even Samuel, that guy who you don't, you look at him like, yeah, he's obviously not him. You still consider him. Then you consider like Victoria has a motive, Nathan has a motive, Prescott has a
Nathan.
What's it? Yeah, Nathan has a motive. Jefferson has a motive. Anyone can have a motive here. Anyone can have a motive here. So it's like, there's so much to it where it's like, there's just not a kind of thing. But I just remember that scene where it was like, I remember playing it, I had my notebook out, making notes. I just remember the syringe going into Max's neck. She falls, you can't reverse time. And it's like, boom, headshot. And I'm like, and then you just see from the shadows, his face, Jefferson. And it's like, like a lost ending. And it's like, and I'm like.
But we're sticking with that ending to be a 4.5, not a 5, objectively. You say in your heart that's episode 4 is a 5, but objectively speaking, you think episode 3 is a 5.
Yeah, I think episode 3 just is probably.
No, I agree.
It's just.
I agree, because again, I'm a big fan of building tension. Like I love building tension, which is what I did. Like at least I tried to do for The Essence of Life. I loved to build that tension and see like where it's going to go. And I think episode 3 did like a textbook definition of building tension in a story. And I think it did that to a mark that a lot of games should copy, or not copy, but like take inspiration from, to say like how did this game build that tension? And then episode 4 was that release of that tension. So I would, if I was going to guess which one's a 4.5, which is a 5, episode 3 for me would be a 5. Episode 4 is a 4.5.
Yeah, it's a tough one to kind of to differentiate two, but they were so strong, those two. There's like, it's great for me to come into that time as well, do those 2 reviews first. They were like bona fide, very, very strong episodes. And I feel very similar with you about a lot of that stuff as well. And I think like, it was great. It was great.
Yeah. Oh, do you want to hear your review of episode 5?
Yeah, this is the one that I don't remember a lot of, to be honest.
So I'm just going to read again half a paragraph. We're going easy on Adnan. So again, it would be like me listening to my music. I'm like, no, please stop. I don't want to. So it goes on to say, it is more satisfying to notice that the dialogue flow even better with the improvements made to writing, with the Life is Strange cast deserving nothing more than praise for their stellar performances in episode 5. Hannah Tell, who has been a standout across the first 4 Life is Strange episodes, once again steals the limelight in episode 5, with her performance as Max reaching new heights. Episode 5 does, however, miss out on the on-screen exchanges between Hanatel and Ashley Birch, mainly for the plot skipping across alternative realities. Good job, Adam. And having the two barely interact with one another until later stages of the episode. Although it's disappointing that one of the most consistent factors about Life is Strange, slightly faith in episode 5, it does serve as a major positive. But yeah, you're going back and forth between like you wish there was more, but you understand why with the writing. And of course, Life is Strange's first 4 episodes, there were signs of Don't Not Entertainment. It wasn't simply wavering on criticism it was receiving, as there was a drastic improvement in lip syncing. So you could tell that there was improvements going on in the game. Yeah. You ultimately gave this episode 4.5 out of 5. Can we see a pattern at this point? Also a 4.5 out of 5.
See, that's that. So I completely forgot about the paragraph you wrote about Max and Hannah, and there's like less Ashley Birch and Hannah together, kind of like in the scenes, except for some of the bigger ones. But it's like that's also I feel very strongly about now thinking on it. And truthfully, I don't think it would have been a 4.5 that episode now in hindsight. No? I think it would have been a 4. If I'm putting the bar at the other two at 4.5, this one should have come to a 4 personally. Or if like one, or it could have been a 4.5 had one of the other ones that been at 5. Like just to preface as well, anyone listening, I did quite a lot of reviews in the industry, but like I never gave a perfect score except for to one Life is Strange game, and I only did that one episode, but I didn't consider it the full Life is Strange game, so I kind of got away with it. I don't think anything can really be a 10 out of 10, except for in rare circumstances. There's very few games I've ever played that I think like this is a 10 out of 10.
Like Ollie Ollie World.
Yeah, we gotta mention that.
Yeah, 10 out of 10.
Episode 5 was really interesting. I remember going into this, and then at the end, I chose obviously save the day, you know, and I don't think that's the strongest ending. Of course, I think like that's a satisfying conclusion. But then when I went back and played it, and then obviously got the other ending, that's the one where it's like, you know, like okay, you know, this is the main choice for me personally. This is how the game should end in that kind of way. Episode 5 was kind of paced a bit weird. It kind of like goes into that kind of like. Do you want when you played the council, Adam, and you had that kind of like part of the story where it goes a little bit like crazy, like midway through it's like it kind of goes into conspiracy.
A little
theories.
Bit crazy. It just goes like batshit insane. Like what? Like I was playing it, and I was like, I put down the controller, and I was like rubbing my temples, like what? I was like, okay, we're just gonna go down this route. Okay.
Great game, anyone. You should play it. I recommend it.
I'm not, this is not a fault. Like, I think everybody should play the console. I think it's it was a great recommendation from Adnan. But again, like, it just throws you through a loop where it just
scratches your head, doesn't it?
Scratched I wanted to rip my scalp off. I was like, what? Why are we going this direction? But it's still a good game. I'm still want to replay it. But oh my god, the twists in the middle! I'm like, are you out of your freaking mind?
So those kind of vibes about this episode. Where it's like it kind of like when we went to the alternate realities. I was like, at the time, I was like, yeah, I can take this, but I wasn't overly sold by it. It kind of like started jumping through time. Like, so in context as well, I remember watching an interview of Michelle Coe, and it was Ashley Birch, and they were talking to Kind of Funny, and it was 2015 E3, and they said that basically Don't Know we're hitting 8-week time windows for each episode. This is the one that missed it, and it missed it just by fractionally. It wasn't huge, but it didn't hit the same window as the other ones, necessarily speaking. But this one felt like a little bit uneven in pacing, because it was like kind of like, let's get to the finish line. It was kind of like doing this a little bit, kind of like going back and forth, like just chopping a little bit. And I enjoyed it for parts. Obviously, you know, we have one of the best moments in the entire franchise where we have Michelle in the art gallery drinking was drinking. Max is there. I was like, I remember seeing that. I was like, that's a very nice little nod there. But I think like, it was just kind of like, it focused all on Max, a lot of it, which it feels, I don't know if you can see that as a negative criticism, but it was very heavily on Max for like most of it. Going through all these kind of like distorted time things, jumping back and forth. There were great moments with like, I love when Alyssa came back and it started now showing you the full effect of time manipulation, because it's signaling that Alyssa is meant to take all those consequences that you saved her from in the episode. Like, she's meant to be in that position. Like, you're not meant to save her. It's like, if you've ever watched Lost, you kind of get the time thing as well in one of the seasons. But it's like, it kind of fitted things really well together, but it just felt like it was like, it's like going at such a fast pace. When I got to the end, I was like, wow, this is like a lot of things have happened here by the time I got to see right at the end.
You do also say, it will no doubt polarize people on whether they believe it's satisfying or fulfilling conclusion to what has been a spectacular title. Making the final choice, I did, let's call it ending B, and that particular cutscene that followed might have been slightly underwhelming, but I appreciate it nonetheless.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's weird now. It's weird that you read it, because I remember writing these, and it just feels, but like it's such a distant memory, and then thinking about it now. I went to this episode. I went to this segment for a long time, because I feel like it's quite eye opening for what it is. But yeah, I was truthfully, like, I don't know how you feel about the entire episode. It was just.
I honestly would also agree with you that I would drop it down to a 4, just because it all encapsulates to this one scene, you know. And I think like the whole alternative realities was kind of not overwhelming, but more of just like, okay, we're here, we're collecting bottles again, that's great, okay, that's nice. But again, like I say this all the time as a creative, it's hard to land a plane. It's so hard to land a plane on something. And I keep going back to the essence of life, but like I had this story in mind, and I'm just like, okay, like I got to Infelicity, second track to the last, and I got to the last track. I'm like, how do I end this? Like, how do I end this? Like I had such a climax, and I was like, bring it back down.
Yeah. It's
just such a hard thing to do, to land a plane. And I say this all the time. And I say this in the last episode that will never see the light of day. I mean, go back to school, and your teacher says, like, write an essay. And in that last paragraph, you just write, in conclusion, antelopes run fast.
Yeah.
There you go. Goodbye. Or like, if you have like a speech that you have to give, like you have to give an oral report, and it's like, well, that's my presentation. Okay. Like, think about those days. But I think, yeah.
No, sorry. I think you hit the nail on the fucking head with that. I think the ending for anything is so difficult to write. Like, even the reviews of those, they're the most difficult to write. The conclusion, I was like, what do I put in here? Even when I wrote a history essay in school, I was like, how do I finish this off? Even now when I write something, I'm like, what is the last paragraph? And you think about even TV spectrum, like when you're talking about it, how many TV shows end on the high note? It's never a soft landing. It's like crash landing on all of them, or most of them. I have very few TV shows I've ever watched where I'm like, great ending. Yeah. This one had like a bumpy ride, because I mean, even you bringing my score down, even me bringing my score down isn't even a bad thing. It's like 4.5 out of 5. Like, it's not even a bad thing. Like, how can you say that's a bad thing? Bring it down just slightly a little bit. But the
only conclusion that was a great ending in terms of TV ever in history of time, Steph Let's Flats. 10 out of 10, like 20 out of 10 ending. My God, what a show. What an ending. I love
also it. Lost as well. The greatest show of all time.
That too.
But anyway.
Did Steph Let's Flats end? I can't even remember. Like, now I'm thinking about it, I was like, I can't even remember how it ended. I think, no, it did end. It did end, and he's just like dicking around basically. So yeah, okay. I think the show did end.
But no, yeah, Polarized was a very no pun intended, polarizing episode. Yeah, it just was. It was. I remember thinking that's all I could think about the entire thing. It's like, this is a very polarizing episode. It's like, how do I really take it in terms of like what I've seen? But yeah, I think like what it was, I think for its time, 4.5 is probably a little bit nicer than what I should have given it. I think personally, in hindsight, it would be a 4, but obviously 4 is a great score out of 5. Like, and considering I'd move some of the other scores up.
Would you like to go on to your favorite series?
Should we do the full season review? Because I did do a full season one for this.
You want to do a full season before you do each episode?
No, well, I did a full season review for Life is Strange 1.
Oh, okay. Well, let me just.
If you look
bring
above
that up.
episode 5, Polarized, you'll see
Yes.
it's November 7th where I reviewed November 7th, 2015, a full season review of the entire thing.
Okay. Got it. Okay. I see it. All right. So the entire review of Life is Strange and written by Adnan Riaz. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I was commissioned to do this at the end of episode 5. It was a full season review.
Gotcha. So ultimately you gave the entire series as a whole, and you even said here, although weak writing and poor lip syncing and some awkward dialogue exchanges were at the forefront of the criticisms in earlier episodes, hindering the full potential of the series from flourishing at the very beginning, Don't Nod Entertainment showed me some flexibility to feedback it received by refining these aspects to make it a noticeable signs of improvement more and more visible in Life is Strange. There were scenes between Max and Chloe, and you kind of like give examples there. And then finally you say, Don't Nod's first effort at cracking a choice-driven episodic format of a video game almost results in a near-perfect experience, which is shocking when you consider how well they've grasped the concept. And you gave it a 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah.
I can agree with that. I think the entire series, 4.5. It's not perfect, but it's not lower than near perfect, I don't think.
Yeah. I think like it's the fluctuation of episodes. As we said, me and Adam had very, I think maybe somewhat controversial opinions in episode 2, which people wouldn't expect. But like, yes. We were very much in agreement in episode 1 being very high score. And then obviously 3 and 4, a very high score for me. And then 5 is a very high, respectable score. I think personally, if I was going to even it out, I probably would give it a 4.5 as a total. There's got flaws in it, but look at how great, like even in hindsight now, I can spend time now in hindsight talking to you about it. This is like 8 years on, and look at the impact it had. Look how well it's aged. Look, even when we played the remastered collection, we re-reviewed that on StrangeCast. Like, it was seminal, man. It's in that echelon of the unique episodic games with Telltales, the ones that we really hold fondly, and I would 100% stand by that. I think that's a more than respectable score.
I would say so. I agree. It's like I said, it's not perfect, but it's up there. It's up there on the upper echelon. So
yeah,
I can agree to that.
Yeah, I was very happy with that review.
But on that note, would you like to go into it?
Oh hell yeah!
So we start off with episode 1. What's up?
So sorry. So before Adam kicks into this, after Life is Strange 1 came out, I was covering it for a little bit. Then I left the industry, went and did a master's in journalism at school, decided to disappear, and then I returned to the industry. And I came back in when Before the Storm was coming out, but I didn't review any of the episodes during that time. Someone else had been tasked with it. So instead I started interviewing a lot of the cast members. I interviewed Katie. That's how I know Katie, for if anyone's asking. Interviewed Kylie at the time. She was, oh God, how old is Kylie now? I think she was 18 or 19. But yeah, that's how I know Kylie from as well. Great, weird when I think about it now as well. When I speak to her, and even when I spoke to her on StrangeCast and spoke on Life After Strange, in my head she's always this young girl, and yet now she's like 24, 25. I'm like, it like blows my mind a little bit. I reviewed those things, and then Captain Spirit came out, and I didn't get to do the review for it. Someone else took it, but I wrote a feature piece on it when I was talking about Charles and Chris's relationship as a feature, but then I didn't do it. However, Life is Strange 2 comes about. I get to review it. They actually asked me to do it. They were like, we want you to do it. Again, got review codes for these, so started reviewing them at the time per release. I said something to Adam before, which I felt with this. I personally don't think in hindsight, I should have been the person to review this. So at this point, I had become both a fan of Life is Strange and I was also a journalist. So I feel I was heavily influenced and quote unquote biased towards what I write. Not saying that I'm being paid off or anything else. I owed any favors. I just felt too inherently in favor of it. Like I say this now, even when Luke and Michelle's Don't Know Montreal game comes out, I will have to preface any conversation we have. Like if it's a review conversation eventually we have on it, like I can't give you a straight clear-cut answer because I hold them too fondly. They make some of my favorite games. They're the same conversation as Kojima. If you ask me about a Kojima game, I'm going to say it's a 10 out of 10.
Oh yeah.
Like that's how I feel.
Yeah.
And the same with Adam would be with Ollie World as well. Like you can't. It's hard to withdraw withdraw bias
Yeah.
if anything.
No, exactly. Like I will always say that Ollie World is a 10 out of 10. I don't care what people say at all. You can fight me. I really don't care.
But yes, Adam, I will let you take it back then. To kick off this will be the final set of the conversation that we do.
Yes. So, you gave. So I'm going back to this. I was also like bringing up the other episodes. So I also want to read this part. So, gameplay has been slightly tweaked from the established formula of Life is Strange, but it was vital for Don't Nod to execute it exactly the way it has been in Episode 1 Roads. With the core rewind mechanic no longer being there, choices are even more important than ever before, especially as players don't have that luxury of changing their initial decision after they picked it. And then there's also, yes, then you finally say, Life is Strange 2 could not and would not be a true successor in the series if Donut didn't make the spotlight different themes. With Life is Strange focusing on subject matters like sexual assault, social media, and bullying, Episode 1 Roads contextualizes real-life issues and embeds them with a main narrative. And then you go into some examples of that. Ultimately, you gave this episode 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, so this is weird. I can't really remember writing any 4 of these reviews. Personally speaking, like during like the first Life is Strange ones, I really remember writing those in my mind. For some reason, I think I was in a pretty horrible place in my mind at these years were really rough for me, if anything. I was kind of like just putting my head down and working and just kind of like thinking. So I was in like a really bad place, I think, emotionally and kind of like physically and stuff. But also I think like it probably Life is Strange 2 related to me a lot at that point as well. Yeah, so this is interesting, Adam.
Yeah,
because obviously this is a very divisive entry for a lot of people. I love this game. I love Life is Strange 2. And I think with this episode, I was it won me over very easily, to be honest. I remember playing it first time around, and very early on I was a bit like, it's very different. We don't have Max and Chloe, and the rewind mechanic's gone, and it's about these 2 new characters, and it's like, it's not in a town. It's kind of like the story's kind of on the move constantly. But I was very much won over by it because the story was, again, it kept what makes Don't Nod great. Its storytelling mechanic. And like that was like very much for me a very powerful thing that I carry throughout the rest of these episodes that I reviewed, and then all the way to the end as well. It was just very hard hitting story. And I think it's too easy to simplify and be like it needed the rewind mechanic. It didn't need any powers at this point. I don't think it needed as much gameplay experience as people might have hoped for. I think it's more about a kind of a journey, if anything, you're following, and you're kind of like learning and teaching and morals and ethics. And Life is Strange 2 as well, like hasn't aged as well as Life is Strange 1, more so on the themes they covered. I think I said to Adam before, I think it's like a time capsule a little bit. This game is stuck in 2018-19. It was very much, they talk about Trump, the wall and stuff like that. They make it very clear. And I very much spoke about it in some of the reviews where I'm like, I prefer them not dancing around the subject. They basically went in with the subject, decided we have a point to make, we'll make it, rather than just kind of like, just kind of like teetering and be like, oh yeah, we don't like this, whatever else. I know if you've ever followed Luke and Michelle and any of the other developers, they're very clear with where their political views and their things are, where they stand on things. And I respect the fact that they're very forthcoming with it. That's how the world's made works in it. But yeah, generally speaking, I really enjoyed the first episode. Obviously, we meet Brody. We have the kind of early relationship with Sean and Lila. But I think a lot of people really want her back in the game. When we said characters who come back, and I personally don't want to see more of her now.
For all these people who want it. But I stand by my point that she served as an anchor home.
I would love to have her more, but I think because of how all the characters work in the game, like even like Cass, for example, I would love Cass in more episodes. She doesn't need to be in more episodes. Sean and Daniel are the main focus. Like anyone else is surplus. They feed into the stories and help to evolve it. They don't need to be in the story more than that. I think that's one of the best things I wish I would have said about these games when I was reviewing them, where it's like the balance and the characters is so much more effective. so much more effective compared to any other game. Like, they don't linger for more than they need to, and same with her relationship with Sean. Like, she doesn't need to be in it more, but that's more of a conversation another time. But yeah, generally speaking, I'm happy with that. I'd keep it at 4.5. I thought it was a very good, strong episode.
Yeah, I thought it was very strong. I thought they did well with tackling the themes, and I thought they did well at tackling what they're going to cover in this episode. So
yeah,
wasn't perfect, but I would say that is near perfect. Also, midway point, like in between this and going on to episode 2, I realized there's no episode 5 review of Life is Strange 2.
Yeah.
I just noticed that.
So I left the industry after episode 4.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
and
right.
They asked me to do it, but I was like, at that point, again, I was in a very different place and mindset and stuff. And I was like, I can't stick around. So they never passed it on to anyone else. So yeah, that's the kind of like weird cliffhanger a little bit on.
Yeah, that's why I noticed, like, because I know you left the industry, but I didn't know if anybody finished the work for you.
No.
Nope. Interesting. Well, then, I mean, episode 5 was I don't know. I don't want to say a weird one, but like,
we'll come on to it.
Yeah. So
yeah, I think there's a lot for us to be able to say about that, and even this full season in general as well.
Yeah. So let's go into it. So episode 2.
Yeah.
Oh boy, you are the only one to give it this review. So I'm just gonna sum up like with like a couple sentences of paragraphs. The idea of rules perfectly encapsulates Sean and Daniel's relationship in this second episode. Depending on the choices made by the player, they can feel frustrated with how Daniel doesn't follow Sean's instructions and declines to break the rules. It's only reinforced by the fact that Don't Nod put forward the question before release of the episode whether a 9-year-old boy would respect the rules or not, especially when they have discovered a unique superpower at their disposal. You also go on to say, the boys stopping with their grandparents open up a brilliant plot surrounding their past history, specifically when it comes to exploring more about their mother, Karen. It's fair to say that the players will be left yearning for more information by the end of episode 2 rules, especially for how the story begins to unfold about her in such an interesting way. The last thing I'm going to say about this is where was the sentence that I had? Okay. Choices and consequences have remained at the forefront of almost any episode in Life is Strange series, and is no different when it comes to episode 2 rules. Players will understand how the minor choices have an impact on Daniel's behavior over the course of the episode, specifically for how Sean has reacted to them in a certain scenario. Sean and Daniel will encounter major decisions to make, and it will test whether the rules have been followed. In post-Telltale games, the era of episodic gaming, Don't Nod as well, and truly keeping the genre alive. You gave this episode 2 rules, a 5 out of 5 review.
Hell yeah! Woo!
Do you stand by that?
Yeah, I do.
Oh my god. A 5 out of 5?
My cat just woke up then as well when I just thought, hell yeah. Okay, so one thing I actually will just say quickly in that review, which you read out, I think I prefaced the Karen thing really well, because obviously we get onto it later on. I think the Karen thing folded out exactly the way that we wanted to. I think it's perfect for that.
Yeah. You gave this high remarks, and especially at the in your concluding where did I see it? Oh, here we go. Cassidy is a brilliant introduction to the episode and will leave players excited at the opportunity to build her relationship with Sean and Daniel going forward.
Oh, come on. And like, look what they did in the next episode. Like, I mean, that's called it very well. But okay, so again, like, I feel like, as I said again, I was in a different place at this point. Would I reviewed Life is Strange 2? No. As I said, I don't think there's too much ethically. You become too inherently biased by something. It's like if you wanted to review, I don't know, like if someone said to me, review Adam's Essence of Life at a famous music magazine, is it going to happen? No. Like, am I going to write about review about you? It's like, no, it's just too inherently biased with things. And that's like where I was at that point. I was a fan and a journalist at that point. Instead of like where I was at the first game, I was reviewing it as just a journalist. I'm a fan and a journalist at this point. As I said, in hindsight, because obviously reviewing them at the time, I was kind of like just following along because I expected the Steam to keep picking it up. Truthfully, I probably wouldn't have given it a 5 now in hindsight. If we're like comparing it to everything else. It would probably be, because for me, I still hold it very fondly, a 4.5. But if I was going to be a bit more harsher, I'd bring it to a 4.
I would bring it to a 4 myself. Like, this is coming from me, who probably would give it a 2 out of 5. But playing through it and just kind of like understanding the context within it gives, like, it's giving more context, and that's what a lot of episode 2s do with 5-episode arcs. It gives just context for what's about to happen. So you get your Cassidys, you get your Daniels disobeying, you get a lot of Karen. So there is context, there's build up within that. So I would say, I would give it a 4, not a 5 though.
To bounce off what you just said there as well, I think that's where, and maybe it's controversial, I think this is a better second episode than episode 2 from Life is Strange 1. I think people hold on too much to that ending.
That is a dirty take right there. That is a filthy take. I don't want to hold that take. I'm not going to comment on that take.
I like, because episode 2 is like, for me, the weakest in the first Life is Strange. I think obviously, like, there's some great iconic moments. You know, the Chloe and the Max on the rail track, the entire thing where the train's coming at Chloe is great. And then obviously the setup at the end with Kate Marsh as well, which is a big one. But for me, it's still not as strong as this. This was like pure character development. This ties in Captain Spirit really well. You bring that entire arc back in. You start manifesting the boys' relationship more. The cook, the breadcrumbs are there for Karen's relationship. You now start exploring who she is. She's this enigma that doesn't exist in Sean's life at this point, or Daniel's, for as long as you know. It's like, do we get her? Do we not get her? Then it's like, we keep exploring the kind of like the Charles and Chris relationship. I love the Charles redemption arc of him talking about, he's like, I need to be there for my son. It's like, I know that I'm going for my own hurt with my own wife going, but it's like, I need to be there. There's a kind of like an acceptance. We see kind of a different take from what we saw in Captain Spirit. And then even meeting the two drifters as well, Finn and Cassidy, like the setup, that's great. I mean, like Cassidy's introduction is just spectacular, man. It's so good. And it's like, even with her like minimal, like 15 minutes, like 10 minutes she's on screen, it's just like, I was like, I want that. I want more of her, like in terms of the game. Like, she's going to be a big part for me going forward. So like, I think like it hit the beat on like a lot of things. And I think it hit the beat on like even towards the ending as well. I really enjoyed the ending as well. I just thought it was a good second episode in terms of like the way that it went. I think it just progressed the story on well. Rather than making me lose interest there, that's where I was at that point. And again, like obviously everyone's had their own opinion. You might think I'm outrageous. I think it's better than episode 2, Life is Strange 1. But like, I think, like, for me personally, I thought it was just a strong one. Because that one, obviously, episode 1, Life is Strange 1, episode 2, is there's so much heavy focus on, like, Kate Marsh's story. And it's meant to fit in the overall story, but it's not as big and as significant as other people's. In terms of, like, Rachel Amber. She almost becomes, like, a Rachel Amber figure in the second episode. I'm a bit like, she needs to be here. And again, I'm going to try and preface as well. I love Day, and Day earned every kudos to her as well for that as well. Love her to bits, but for me, like Kate Marsh was, I feel like in hindsight that was just a weaker episode compared to like this one, for example, where it's still the boys' relationship is the main thing, constantly like this going forward, and then it's like in between that we have the grandparent story arc, then we have Karen's story arc, then we have Charles and Chris's story arc, we have an introduction to Cassidy and Finn. If you watch the video version, you'll see me putting all these circles in place. I just think personally it's that. In hindsight, would I brought the review score down? Probably just a little bit, but I still think it's a very strong episode.
And that's just it. It's kind of like, just a little bit I would, but in hindsight, looking at everything, I'm just like, it was fine. It's good. You know what I mean? It's all right. I think it's fine.
Yeah, but you hate Life is Strange too. Anyway.
Yeah.
No, I think in hindsight, I probably would have changed my mind just a little bit. But again, it's not like we're going from a 5 to a 2 or a 1 or something. I still think it's a very strong episode.
Yes. Do you want to move on to episode 3?
Oh, aye.
So we're going on to episode 3, Wastelands, which
Yes.
Cassidy might have been the standout character in episode 3, Wastelands, but there has to be credit handed to the Don't Nod for their fantastic work in writing Finn and voice actor Matthew Gallenstein, bringing him to life. It's easy to make the character a pothead and with little substance beyond his personality, but the exact opposite is here. Finn, to be fair, is the male equivalent to Cassidy in many areas, adopting a similar charm and wittiness. Players will watch Finn become a big brother-esque figure for Daniel. You also say, outside of Cassidy and Finn, Life is Strange 2 shows shades of the first title through other supporting characters featured in episode 3. While Sean and Daniel's adventures in the first 2 episodes had taken them across multiple locations, the camping site is a primary location in the 3rd episode, and it allows players more time to interact with different characters over the course of the story. For the likes of Jacob and Hannah to Penny and a couple Ingrid and Anders, players will want the same experiences they had in Life is Strange in terms of learning more about their backstories. Finally, I want to add in, Donut has come a long way in its writing for the series, but it still feels clunky in parts. Sean refers to Daniel as Emo Daniel, and it's cringeworthy to hear it repeated. Daniel, however, has his best moments where he wants Sean to treat him with more respect and not like child. With episode 3, Wastelands, also highlighting a massive improvement in his powers since episode 2 rules. It does feel that Daniel's powers are withdrawn from most parts of the story due to all the other subplots in the narrative, but it doesn't diminish players' interest in the attention is placed back on it. You ultimately gave this episode, can we say it together now? 4.5 out of 5. 4.5 once again. I don't think you gave it any lower than that so far, or any of them actually.
No. So
what would you say?
Right. So in hindsight now, this would be a 5.
Yeah.
So yeah, rules would drop and then this would go up. I think this is up there as one of the most memorable episodes in the entire Life is Strange series. For me,
I agree with you in the statement of memorable. Yes.
Yeah, for me, it's in the same bracket as Life is Strange 1's episode 3 and 4 in terms of like the quality of it. Obviously, like it's funny you mentioned so again, like these are the reviews that I don't remember that much of, and I think again it was like where I was at that point in my life. But I think the entire episode is the strongest out of the entire 5 episodes of Life is Strange 2. I think the relationship you have at the campsite is so good. The characters they have there, oh man, like the colourful cast of characters they have at the campsite. It's like, we talked about in the who we want to see more of, like, like Penny's a big one for me as well. And it's like, you have Cass there, you have Finn there, you have Ingrid, you have like Jacob, and obviously we see more Jacob later. But it's like, there was great moments in that, and I think that there was this. It was now like we're in the 3rd episode, and we're kind of like, we're going towards that finishing line, but we kind of see friction developing Sean and Daniel's relationship, and you see Finn and his like maybe his ulterior motives and what he's kind of doing and how he's become like a surrogate big brother to Daniel. I love the fact that this is like, again, it's the if Life is Strange 1 is a coming of age story for Max, like it's very much so it felt replicated with Sean, but it's more about you see him experience things like the fact that he can have a tattoo, you can change his hair, you can have a sexual relationship with either Finn or Cassidy, and you see this boy evolve. Like as I said, like there's the trials and tribulations of Sean Diaz in this game is so good, and I always want people to kind of like have that time with these characters, especially with Sean. But I genuinely thought it was just a stronger episode because you had that kind of time to spend with all these characters. It's pretty crazy as well. I completely forgot as well that there's an entire scene with where Hannah comes out and she doesn't have a top on. Yeah. I completely forgot. When it was on, I was like, yeah, I remember seeing that. I was like, yeah, wow. I was like, okay. But I think, generally speaking, I thought it was really good. And then even the ending, I thought the ending was very good.
Yes, yeah. It left you like, oh my god, did Sean die? Like, are we going to play as Daniel now? Like, I remember thinking that. It's like, are we going to switch main characters now? Because Sean's
that would have been
dead?
an interesting twist.
That's what I thought was going to happen. I was like, okay. And then when we saw the trailer of him walking down the desert, I thought that was older Daniel. And we took on the role of Daniel. Like, that's what I thought.
No, that's actually interesting. I didn't even think about that. I was like, oh, no. Because my boy Sean's going to come back with looking like Big Boss in the next episode where he's got like only one eye patch. But no, like I generally like just enjoyed the entire ending. Like, again, it's not the same as episode 3 Chaos Theory and episode 4 Dark Room, like the ending, but it reminds me of like the first episode of The Walking Dead season 4 where AJ shoots shoots the bloke at the school, and they all look at him and it's like, I thought he was going to hurt everyone, and it kind of it cuts and it's like, that's the kind of oomph it had. I was like, oh, actually, it's just kind of like a bit more interesting. But yeah, generally, like I enjoyed the entire thing, like even the weed nipping scenes where you like cutting the weed and stuff. It was a kind of like an evolution of the game at that point. And I think for me personally, it's one of the standout episodes. If we're talking about like all the ones in the series, it's for me like up there. I hold it very fondly.
I would definitely agree, bringing it back to a 5 because I think it's the most memorable in this entire series, I would say. Do you want to go on to your final review of this?
My final review.
So, move on to episode 4, Faith of Life is Strange 2. We go on to say, just like racism, Don't Nod continues to intertwine other themes into episode 4, Faith, and places a heavy focus on the role of religion and LGBT representation. Episode 3, Wastelands, fully embraced the option for Sean to have an intimate relationship with either Cassidy or Finn, but the penultimate episode respectfully tackles how characters' homosexuality opposes the idea of their parents' religious values. And then you go on to say examples of that. You say episode 4, Faith, might feel like a shorter experience compared to the previous 3 episodes, but it feels the most balanced in terms of pacing. There's barely any filler content in the episode, and the focus on Sean makes a compelling narrative from start to finish. Donut continues to utilize Life is Strange 2's excellent soundtrack during important segments and create more atmospheric experience. Your concluding thoughts are Life is Strange 2 took a full advantage for the conclusion of episode 3 with a story that fully fleshes out Sean's character and the relationship to Daniel. Then you go on to say that Gonzalo Martin's voice acting performance is a standout and brings Sean's raw emotions to life as he battles his way back to Daniel. Sean's entire anguishing adventure from start to finish pays off with a superb ending to the episode. You gave this episode
Stay with us.
4.5 out of 5. You did not rank any Life is Strange games lower than a 4.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Like I think obviously like had I got the other, like maybe the earlier ones in episode, the first Life is Strange, maybe they kind of fluctuate. I find it hard to put anything below a 4 realistically. Life is Strange in most of the series, even in BTS as well. Like I think it'd be pretty hard. Maybe there might be 1 or 2 3.5s, but that's because it's a prequel with 3 episodes.
Yes.
I personally would stick with this at 4.5.
I would too, honestly. Yeah, 4.5. Yeah.
Obviously, I think like in hindsight, my thing with this episode is really interesting that I have you with me now, and it's like your experiences are very, for me, eye opening in terms of like the way that you've seen things from the youth pasture days and like kind of like the themes they're tackling on it. I like as I said with Gonzalo Martin's performance, like that man deserved that BAFTA.
Yes.
Like he earned it with his heart and soul. Like, and you see it in this performance. This episode is Gonzalo Martin's Oscar moment. Like,
oh yeah,
he's so good in it. And I feel like pacing wise, I wasn't really that bothered with like how episode 4 was paced in terms of like if it was too slow or too be. It kind of was like for me the most balanced in terms of like the time I spent in it. Like what I was kind of carrying on it, where the story's going, what's happening, the introduction of Karen, bring even back Jacob as well, and bringing this really interesting dynamic back in the stories and what they were telling in terms of the themes. really touched on well, treated well again, obviously, as well. You know, expect that kind of thing from Don't Nod as well, to be treating things well. But then, as I said, it's the trials and tribulations of Sean. Like, this is like the one way it's like, you know, he's like pushing, and it's like every moment he like goes back to Daniel in that church, he's like not giving up until you basically win him over. And the bond of that bond of the Wolf brothers evolves into this new thing, which you kind of see in the 5th episode going forward. Like, there's no clashing of the heads anymore. Like, their relationship ends at this point. They've accepted it. Like, he knows that Daniel's his brother, but he needs to respect him, and he needs to treat him like an adult, and he's going to become like that, etc. But it's like their relationship hits this kind of like new level, which kind of like sets up perfectly for the final episode. But generally speaking, yeah, I wouldn't change it. If I was going to be cruel, like as I said on our scrapped episode, I would give it a 4. But I personally, I think that was a perfect score.
And I
for me,
think
like,
that would be kind of an
4,
unfair rating of 4. You know, I don't think it's down to a 4. I think it's near perfect. I don't think it is perfect, but I don't think it's anything lower than a 4.5. It's right there. It's up there, you know. But a 4, I think like you said it would be a cruel rating. It wouldn't be like a fair rating. No.
Do you know what, as well, when you mentioned it as well, like me giving 4.5s across all these episodes, it's so different reviewing an episodic game. Like, that's what I find, like, because I reviewed The Council on this website, by the way, Adam. If you want to check those scores
did you?
out.
Huh.
Yeah. So I reviewed all 5 episodes of Council and the full season, and the review scores are like this: up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. So it's like it's consistently differently. But it's like if I was reviewing, for example, The Walking Dead season 1, Telltale, they're pretty much going to be 4s across the board, aren't they? And maybe 5s on certain episodes. Like, why am I going to bring them down? There was a standout season that. In terms of storytelling. So it's like, even with like Life is Strange, it's like it's so difficult to bring something below like a 4.
Yes.
And I think personally, like, the only thing that would have got, I think it would have got a 4 from me, if anything. It would have been episode 2 of the first Life is Strange.
Yes.
And if I was being cruel, I would have brought it down to 3.5, because I think it's the weakest out of like the most of the ones that we see in the series. But like, truthfully, it's hard to get anything below a 4 for me. I think the gate, because that's what I feel like, because then consensusly, the kind of like final score of the full season kind of makes me being like, oh, it's a 4, it's a 4.4 or 4.5, because like this is what it's got across the entire board. Scores have been up and down, and it's like, yeah, that's the full season score. But it's interesting that you mentioned some of the stuff. Again, I can't remember much about episode 4 in terms of what I was writing, and that's the shortest review, because I was pretty much signing off that at the industry. I was like, I'm done at this point. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I was very excited for episode 5 after this when I finished it. But yeah, this was an interesting note to finish on.
But that is all of your reviews officially on Hardcore Gamer. Unfortunately, episode 5 was not given a review score at all. So, unfortunately not. To
be honest, just to kind of fit that into this, because then we'll move into Spread the Arts and we'll call it a day here. I think, like, again, because it's now so different, because it's like I couldn't have reviewed it then and then seen what I say in hindsight now. I think, personally, episode 5 is a little bit... the pacing's a little bit here and there. Like, it's a bit slow, it's a bit long. But I think, personally, the choice at the end you have and the way the kind of story folds, I think it's a very, very strong episode. It would probably sit at like a 4.5. It would, if I'd reviewed at the time, it probably would have gone to a 4.5. I think I would have just like set it up there. Now, in hindsight, I would have put it on a 4. I think 4, again, very respectable. And I think that's where, like, for example, when I reviewed Polarized, like, I think they would both end on 4s, because I think that's a very strong way of ending the series for what they are. If Polarized is a 4, I'm going to give episode 5 of Life is Strange 2 a 4.5. Damn. Well, because, like, it gives you multiple endings. It gives you, like, actual reason for your choices. Yep. If, like I said, if Polarized is a 4, or it doesn't really give you a reason for your choices, Life is Strange 2 episode 5 actually gives purpose and more depth behind your choices, and I would say it's a 4.5. It's just the ending. It's like, I remember, like, when I was there waiting on the wall and they have all the police, it's like, do you sacrifice yourself here? Like, my one is like when Daniel just gets out and like just tears all these cops apart. Like, yeah. I'm like, this is so freaking cool. Yeah. But it's like, that's what I mean. Like, it was a very, very strong ending for the series. I feel like if it was bringing it down to 4 and being mean at that point, it would probably have just been like because I'm bringing it down because it's like the pacing's a little bit here and there at that point. But as I said, I really enjoyed the stuff with when David's introduction, Dave Madsen, Ponytail Dave is back. Like we love Ponytail Dave coming back in the later episodes of Life is Strange 2, and then just like the entire like setup from that, and then they go to the wall, they get captured. I think it's a little bit slower, but I think again it just adds to depth. Eventually, like hitting fifth gear and going into the finale, and it's like a very good, satisfying conclusion. Like you said, multiple endings, ties in different characters. You have different characters pop back up, even if it's for brief cameos and stuff in different endings. What's not to love about it? And I think like it just fit. It was a nice little. It was the cherry on the cake for me for a two brother story. And I think that's for me. Like I think looking back now, it's aged very well. And like the performance of a lifetime from Gonzalo Martin and Roman George. I don't praise him enough, but I should praise him enough in terms of like what he did as a young child actor to come into that role. Seminal, but like it was just great personally. And I think like again at the time I probably would have just given it 4.5 at that point. I think it would have been a 4.5 across the board for most of those episodes because that's all I was like, it's hard to kind of review episodes like individually. I think like Life is Strange ones that Don't Nod has made specifically. Is there really like a hugely weak episode in all the series? No, really.
No. Yeah.
You might you might bring one down a little bit, but I don't think like it sits in the 4 to 5 brackets for me. I remember them so well, and it's like, why would I bring anything below that? I think like there's still seminal episodes. And it's kind of like add-on side. If I was reviewing the full season, it would have been a 5 because it's the best Life is Strange game. And we're going to end. No, sure. The full season would have got, at the time, I probably would have just given it 4.5 because every other episode would have had 4.5 or 5. I think for me, it's a 4.5. I put it equal with the first Life is Strange, but that's me, how much I like Life is Strange 2. If I was being critical, again, it would be a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's a 4.5. I want to give it a 4 now because I think it still impacted the entire franchise
massively.
But it's not perfect. But I don't think I would give it a 4. Don't think I would give it anything lower than that.
No,
because it's still a strong entry into the franchise. I would agree with that. I
just think it's a very as I said immediately, it's a very divisive entry. Like even yourself, like we joked about it very early on about like you not liking Life is Strange 2, and you just weren't convinced about it. And then I remember when Luke tweeted at you saying like we don't, where he said that really great tweet with you. It's like we're not bothered that you don't like it massively, but we appreciate you saying nice kind of things about it, etc. And it was really nice to hear that. And obviously, it just kind of feel bad about hearing because you don't want to like bash on a developer or say anything about their games or anything. But it's like then you played it again recently when we did the other episode where I made you play it again, and it's like your mind changed a little bit, and it's because you still like I can see where you like it a little bit.
Yeah.
Here where it's like there's so many things, but that's why I say with Life is Strange, I'm like if you don't like it the first time, go back and play it. I know some people who absolutely love the socks off it. Some people who absolutely dislike it. That's fine. Like as I said before, like I'm I like True Colors, but I don't like it nowhere near as much as some people do. But that's just like opinions for what it is. But I was happy with the direction they were going in this game. And then when they went with True Colors and they brought that out and they took too much from Life is Strange, I was like, are we really in the Force Awakens moment of this series? Because it's not that for me. It's like we need to go into the anthology series. We go into different stories. We try different things.
Right.
And if they wanted to capitalize in the first place, Square Enix should have just done a trilogy with Max and Chloe. I don't know why they do this. They always Square Enix, they do it every time. Even in Final Fantasy, they tried to make Lightning work in the 13 series. I didn't mind 13 as the series, but they tried it so much. And it was like, just leave it and move on. There's like people are not going to accept it. And they do just weird things with it. But like they could have done a trilogy with like Max early on and then gone into this. Then it's like we're starting afresh now. Life is Strange 2 is now an anthology series. We're doing this, and obviously, you can't hold a gun to Luke, Michel, Raoul, Jean-Luc's head and be like, make this game with Max and Chloe in it. They wanted to go in a different direction. They were happy to go in that different direction. I was happy and very early on accepted it. That's why that's why the reviews don't look very different. Even though I said to you early on they might be a bit biased because I'm a fan. At that point, I was like, I'm like, this is different and it's cool. Yeah. I'm happy with this. Like, do the story. Let's follow these two brothers. Let's see what's happening with them. So happy.
Yeah. Well, I agree.
Yeah. So really,
yeah.
It was a long time ago in this episode, but I'm happy that we on the same spectrum of certain things. I still stand by firmly where I stand, and my episode 2 rules is a 5 out of 5. And I was just lying to Adam before, so let's just get and spread the arts.
Great. Yeah, you want to hit
like
up?
To go first?
Yeah, I actually took the time to finish a book I started earlier this year, and then life got kind of crazy. But I finally took time this week to just finish it out. I finally finished reading Jeanette McCurdy's "I'm Glad My Mom Died." I cannot recommend this book enough because again we've heard the stories about child actors and how it messes them up and kind of like rearranges their brain in a negative way. But this book puts in such detail that you feel like you're living Jeanette's life, and it puts it in such detail where like how it all snowballed to that effect, and you start to understand why she is the way she is. Not in a way of like, man, Hollywood really screwed her up. I'm like, it's way more nuanced than that. And I will say this, the first 2/3 of the book, you're like, man, this is messed up. Oh my God. The final third of the book, there were a couple chapters where I actually put the book down and I just like, okay. Took a breath, picked it back up, read the next chapter, had to put the book down like, oh my God. Okay. Like it gets the last, it's broken up into two sections. The before, which before her mom died, and then after where she's really grieving and she doesn't realize it. That after section is intense. Like there are some things that are like, man, it's hard to read because this actress and you grew up with this actress essentially. So I still recommend it. Do I say it ends on a high note? Not necessarily. I think it ends on a human note. So if you're ever interested in reading a book this year, Jeanette McCurdy's I'm Glad My Mom Died. Fantastic book and fantastic writing. I recommend this highly.
It's a very strong title. That I was about to ask you what the title, the name was again, because I thought I misheard you at first.
No, it's called I'm Glad My Mom Died.
Is there a reason why?
I'm not going to spoil it, but I think she's in terms like I will spoil in a way of like she can now grow as a person.
Right.
So I don't want to spoil too much about the book, but
okay.
There's a lot of things she addresses that the media put out, like saying the media said this about this. Here's the truth and how it actually happened. Like there's a lot of things that are just like, man, like you were watching this, and there's a lot of things like this was happening during Sam and the Cats. This was happening during iCarly. I'm like, I just you would never know. And again, like I think that's the point.
Yeah, because like what's interesting with it, when you say it as well, like because like we're in a different period now where even younger people are becoming even famous. Like for example, like when you look at Billie Eilish as well, she's like a Gen Z kind of like model of like musician, like. But and she look how young she is. When I remember, like when I looked at how old she was and when she got into music, I was like Jesus Christ. But like even with because like she's part of the early advent of child actors. Like I think she's part of the second wave because like Nickelodeon very early on in the 1990s had already started that. I think she was the second wave of like the child actors, and now we just have like, as I said, like loads. Like I've interviewed a child actor, Chandler, when he came on this channel for Life After Strange, child actors. So there's kind of like mechanisms and things in place that are more protective of them. So I feel like she's kind of like being thrown very early on into something which was like not expected. And obviously, I imagine she probably talked about Dan Schneider in the book.
Okay, so she didn't say Dan Schneider.
Right.
She used it as the creator. Like anytime you see the creator, you gotta imagine that she tried to use it, and then the editor's like, "Hey, we can't do that." So
we don't want lawsuits.
Yeah, exactly. So, and again, I don't know if I don't know if it's Dan Schneider. It just says the creator. So I don't know. But yeah, it's Dan Schneider. It's Dan Schneider. No, he comes up a lot, and it doesn't come across like whenever Dan Schneider comes across, it's not like shocking news. It's just more of like you're in the room as it's happening. And I was like, oh, boo. And then you realize how young Jeanette is while this is all happening. And it's just like, and again, the way her mom treats her I will spoil one thing, and that's it. There's sections where it reveals that her mom showered her until she was like 17. Like bathed her like a child until she was 17. That's like the tip of the iceberg of abuse from her mom. Like it's insanity, dude.
Well, and that explains the title of the book a bit more, actually.
No, that's what I mean. That's like the tip of the iceberg for the emotional abuse. It gets, like I said, the last third, when it gets into the after section, it's some heavy stuff, dude. It's heavy. I'm like, no. Like but it's so good. Like I think everybody should read it, because like,
it's the inside story, isn't it?
It's the inside story of just like an actual, and not just like a documentary or accounts. This is like from birth to where she is now. And again, it doesn't end on a high note. It ends on a human note. And I think that's what I appreciate about this book.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, like, obviously, if anyone's interested, there are many allegations hurled at Dan Schneider. I'm not obviously say that they are true or not, because obviously they are allegations at the minute. He's obviously, and for anyone wondering, he was a big figure in Nickelodeon in the mid 90s to like 2000s run. He like made a lot of the famous shows you've probably seen, like Kate Keane and Kel, Amanda Show, iCarly, Drake and Josh. He was like the helm of most of these projects. A lot of graphic stuff that you'll find as well. I think I remember seeing someone say, like, I think it might be iCarly or something. There's a scene with like things being thrown on one of the girls' faces, and you're like, you know, I was very young when I was watching it, but now when I look at it, I'm like, that's hypersexualized the way it's done. And these are young women who are young actors who are on set. So it comes across as very strange in that. So I, as I said, I'm not surprised that she's kind of like addressed the quote unquote the creator in certain parts of this.
Not a spoiler, but I will say the sexual assaults that happen in this, not even necessarily from Dan Schneider. There's a lot of other people that committed it. And it's Dan Schneider's not really in this as a sexual abuser, more as an emotional abuser. And there's other people who involve themselves in sexual assault, and you're just like,
alleged, just to put into Dan Schneider, that alleged.
Yeah, exactly. Like Dan Schneider's not in there as like a sexual predator. He's in there as just like, you'll read the book, but there's other people. Like Dan Schneider is kind of like a drop in the bucket to what Jeanette had to go through. And I was like, oh my God, dude. But yeah, I recommend reading it. It is well worth a read. But
yeah, it's a pretty brutal industry, and especially with like a child act. Like, as I said, like
or the audiobook. Listen to the audiobook. I don't care.
I say this when I'm laughing. I say this all the time. Like me and Adam, like I'm hitting 30 in April, and Adam's well on the way to 40 at this point. But it's like we talk. Adam's not on the way to 40, but like he's in his 30s. But it's like I always think now. It's like now, like I'm at the age where I know things. And I thought I knew him at 20, and in my teen years, you don't know shit until you get to this age. I'm being genuinely serious. You might think, oh, this old guy is telling me this. No, true. Everyone said it to me. It's like, you don't know who you are and what you want to do, etc. Blah blah. Until you get into like, your 20s, late 30s, it's like that's when you start getting a realization of it. And it's like, truthfully, now it's like I'm like, I know now. It's like the realization's hit me. It's like now I feel a lot more in control of things. I'm quote unquote adulting, but it's like I know. When I'm adulting, it's like I know that I'm in control of it. Like if I was speaking to 15-year-old me and he thinks he's a smart ass, he's not a smart ass. He thinks he is. He thinks he's more mature than he is. But it's like when you're putting a young actor on the set or something like that, and like what can happen in between. There's all kinds of these allegations go from all kinds of sets, especially for like Zoe 101 to like any of the other shows. Like there's so many of them with like horror stories, allegations, and kind of like just bullying or whatever. Like there's like if you want to dig into it, you can kind of see it, and it kind of puts a light on your childhood a little bit differently. But no, it's a very interesting recommendation that you gave it. And I think obviously as you said, a lot of people grew up with her, so I think it's a very interesting story for people to.
Oh yeah,
get back
on.
I
took the time to finish it.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that you recommended it. So I'm going to recommend here, for my Spread the Art, a fantastic experience, which is episode 2, Rules from Life is Strange 2, a 5 out of 5 experience. Now,
great.
I will recommend to people the Resident Evil 4 demo, because obviously Resident Evil 4 is coming out next week or the week that this episode drops. If you haven't played it, I would recommend it. It's a very interesting a demo. I love the game from Shinji Mikami, Resident Evil 4. I think it's a masterpiece, that one for me. I would put it in that masterpiece echelon. As much as people have divisive opinions on it and for different things, I think it's a brilliant experience. This is a lot darker though. It's like changed quite a lot in terms of the style, and it's got its reviews out. This today came out. The embargo was lifted on the 17th of March, and it's got universal like 10s off so many places. Like, I think GameSpot's give it a 10, IGN's give it a 10.
Yeah, even Jake Baldino is really loving it. Jake Baldino is like a huge Resident Evil fan.
Yeah, and I kind of get it as well, because the tone has changed. It's very much like a very similar in terms of RE2, the mechanics. They've taken every of these remakes, they're taking RE2 remakes mechanics and using them, and it's a lot darker. So it's like, it's not got, for me, I'm wondering what they're going to keep in terms of, they're obviously going to get rid of some of the humor, which was done in the original Resident Evil, which is a shame, because that was what made it cheesy and corny. It's like when you try and remake a Kojima game, it's like you need to keep that cheesiness in there a little bit. It adds the flavor to the game. But it's a lot darker, and I'm kind of interested to see how it unravels compared to what I played in the original, because the action horror element I preferred as well, especially in RE4. I think they balanced it really well. This just seems more intense darkness, if anything, at times. And obviously as well, it features Nick Apostolidis, who was on Life After Strange, who was Frank Bowers in BTS, and Charles in Captain Spirit as well. So he's Leon in RE2 remake.
I keep forgetting he's Leon every time.
Yeah, he's Leon in RE2 remake. He's Leon in RE4 remake, which is mad. And then also, obviously, as I said, Frank Bowers and Charles Erickson, he plays as well in Life is Strange series. So there's a little nod for Life is Strange. But yeah, I would recommend you check it out just to see how you feel about it. If you're a Resident Evil fan, you might have played it already, but I would just check it out, because I'm still very divided initially in how I feel about it just in general. I'm one of those Resident Evil 4 purists, and I want to see how this kind of maps out, but there is my recommendation. So I think we'll end here, Adam. I hope this episode comes out clean. I'm like been praying since the entire start of this that there was no technical issues, and again, apologies that we missed our time slot. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please drop a subscribe, turn on notifications, like the video, and share with your friends. As I said, you're kind of supporting our channel. I'm not going to give you any spiel. It's just more about helping us support our channel and helping it grow. And also, StrangeCast is available on all podcast services, so you can check us out on Spotify with the video version, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, whichever podcast service we're on there. So do follow us on there, and you can download episodes when they come out. Actually, big news as well, on top of that, before we finish. Life After Strange, after 6 months, will be back later this month. Some redeeming factors after losing a 2.5-hour podcast conversation with Adam earlier this week. We actually, on very short notice, I managed to get someone, and I was like, wow. As like, compared to like I've been chasing up a couple of actors, and it's just never materialized, and this has happened. So this is the first episode since Katie appeared for the second time. This is like 6 months on, so it's like I've got that episode planned, and hopefully it will drop before the end of the month. So it'll be nice, like, you know, it's nice to just get the series back, if anything. So I just wanted to share that right now, here and there. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode. In the comments, let me know what you think of my reviews. Am I wrong? Am I right? Have I said controversial things? Is Adam a hater on episode 2 rules? Just let us know what you feel. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the episode. We'll catch you next time. Take care, guys.
Later.